reading today is taken from the Gospel of Mark, unsurprisingly, because that's what we're working in. Gospel of Mark, chapter 8, verses 11 to 21 inclusive. Now, if you'd been looking at this reading over the last few days, if you've been looking at the things that go before it, you'll see that Jesus, in Mark there are two big feeding miracles. He feeds the 5,000, which we all know about, and he feeds the 4,000. And the bit that goes ahead of our reading today in Mark's Gospel is when he fed 4,000 people with 7 loaves and a few fish. And again, at the end, there were 7 baskets that were filled with crumbs and broken pieces. But from verse 11, the Pharisees came and began to argue with him, asking him for a sign from heaven to test him. And he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation ask for a sign? Truly I tell you, no sign will be given to this generation." And he left them, and getting into the boat again, he went across to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to bring any bread, and they had only 1 loaf with them in the boat. And he cautioned them, saying, "Watch out, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod." And they said to one another, "It's because we have no bread." And becoming aware of it, Jesus said to them, "Why are you talking about having no bread? Do you still not perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Do you have eyes and fail to see? Do you have ears and fail to hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000? How many baskets full of broken pieces did you collect?" And they said to him, 12. "And the 7 for the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you collect?" And they said to him, 7. Then he said to them, "Do you not yet understand?" Well, that's quite some reading, isn't it? We just take this book of Psalms out of the way until tomorrow. The themes that keep cropping up in Mark. Themes of Jews and Gentiles. In a great crowd, there'll be a mix of Jews and Gentiles. Food, there's multiple references to food and feeding, whether it be physical feeding or spiritual feeding. The sea is often involved, the Sea of Galilee, where they crisscross the Sea of Galilee from one place to another. Jesus has walked on the water, he's calmed a storm. These are all things that are integral to Mark's story. There's conflict. There's this simmering conflict between Jesus and the Pharisees. And there's this frustration, which Mark, more than any of the other gospel writers, the frustration of Jesus with his disciples and their failure to get it. There's much about plenty. And there's so many other things as well. But in this reading, we have the Pharisees. And isn't it lovely how Jesus, thinking back to what the Pharisees were saying, asking for a sign, Mark juxtaposes it really well. So he's just seen the Pharisees are trying to trick him into showing off. He walks away, gets in the boat with the disciples, and off they go. And then there's this little aside from Mark about there not being any bread. Jesus is still thinking about the Pharisees. And he says, beware of the Pharisees and their yeast, and beware of Herod's yeast also. And this is nothing to do with bread, obviously. He's just thinking back to, how would you describe it really? An invisible and pervasive influence that the Pharisees and that Herod are beginning to have in and around Judea and Galilee and over the Hebrew nation. An influence that Jesus similarly is trying to combat with his pervasive yeast, his influence, his way of love and truth. And Jesus suddenly realises they've been talking about bread. And actually it is funny, isn't it? And then Mark injects this humour here. He said, what are you talking about not having any bread? Didn't you see me take 5 loaves and make 5 loaves and 2 fishes and feed 5,000 people and have 12 baskets left over? Didn't you notice about a couple of hours ago when I fed 4,000 people or 4,000 people with just 5 loaves or 7 loaves, and you collected up 7 baskets of leftover food? Come on, guys, you've got 1 loaf. I can feed us with 1 loaf. Let's not worry about that. And isn't it interesting, again, how the Pharisees have asked for a sign? Jesus has just done the impossible with 4,000 people and fed them, and then had more left over after everybody had eaten than he had when he started. The disciples don't seem to understand this. This is a man who can walk on water, who can calm the winds, who can feed people with 1 loaf. Any number of people, probably, if you extend the miracle. And he's just frustrated, and wouldn't you be? And you do all this stuff, no one notices, or they notice and forget immediately. So there's this blindness that Jesus is trying to combat. And I think sometimes we can be quite blind. We can see things but not understand them. I think I was talking about flags and the rash of Union Jacks and St George's flags that have sprung up in various places, in an excess, I think, of nationalism. I'm a patriot. I'm a firm believer in our nation, and I only want the best for our nation. But that's patriotism. Nationalism is something else. Nationalism is not loving, is not inclusive, is not a good thing. And people are blind to it. People are blind to it happening because they see a flag that they like, a flag that they value and respect, and they can't understand why they shouldn't maybe be respecting it in the way that the people who put the flag up want them to. And this is just a little sense of it that I have. I will stop going on about it because it's something that's really upsetting me and disturbing me, if I'm honest about it. So there we go. All those themes, all those things to think about. But how often are we blind to what's going on around us? How often do we see God at work and just sort of, oh, that was rather lovely, and then forget about it and get on with our lives? Amen.